Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Philosophical Talks. Today's subject is the dark side of life. I'm not trying to paint my channel to be dark and gloomy, because I know that's what it's kind of coming across. And that is not the point of it. It's a subject that, since I kind of am still in the process of recovering from, in the aspects of the dark side of life, I think it's the best time to bring it up so that way these feelings get captured and not forgotten at some point. Because it already kind of is. Like, I'm starting to forget. Just like with any sort of traumatic event in one's life, your brain starts to push that event out of your head. And it's very clearly happening. Because when I try to peer back to it, I can't really extract certain exact emotions and feelings. It's now when I look back at that time in which those events happened, I know that it sucked, and it just kind of feels like this gray monotone feeling. But there was definitely more going on during that time, like specifically, than I'm now starting to feel. And so that's why I want to bring it up before these feelings start to go away. And so I want to kind of capture some of that essence before it's gone. And the first part of this video, I want to talk about depression, is what I'm referring to when I'm talking about these past events. And this was like post breakup with someone that I once really, really cared about. And you can say what you want about this story, blah blah blah. Everyone deals with things differently, right? And so I dealt with this situation probably differently than what others would, how they would react, and things like that. We all come from different backgrounds, different places. Some people have different life experiences than others. So just keep that all in mind, okay? So I'll start off by saying that you can really only relate to what I'm talking about here if you've been through that depressive grief cycle. And everyone's gone through it. It's just a matter of, are you feeling it now? Because if you are, then it's going to relate much more than it would if if you were depressed years ago or whatever, right? So just kind of in the moment. Just like with certain songs you listen to, they don't quite resonate as much unless you are going through exactly what those lyrics are portraying. So relating to the songs is much more difficult when you're not going through it. You can't really relate. But all of a sudden, certain songs started having deep resonating feelings with me once I started listening to them. And these are mostly popular love song, breakup songs that I'm referring to, like A Theory of a Dead Man's Not Meant to Be, and Broken by Lovely the Band, or Broken by Seether. Songs like that, right? Bittersweet Symphony. There's a lot of different songs that encapsulate certain feelings, and then when you feel them in that moment, it hits different than you would when you're your normal self. When you're not your normal self and you're in this depressive state, you sort of enter this world, this different world. It physically, mentally, emotionally feels like you're entering a different type of world than the one that you were in when you were happy. Because when you get depressed, everything becomes dark, hidden, away, solitary, just no color. Those are the best kind of words I could use to describe that feeling when you enter that space. Because you are no longer yourself. You are no longer that happy. Even if you aren't happy, you were at least like just getting through day to day life. But you now enter a world filled with depression, and everything is just sucked away. Everything. Nothing has purpose or feeling or meaning to it. And even the things that you did enjoy, all that all that joy that came from it at one time is it is no longer giving you joy. It literally nothing you do is stimulating. Nothing you do feels right. Nothing you do feels fulfilling. It all just kind of sucks. And that, by far, anyone can agree that that is one of the worst feelings a human being or any living thing could ever go through, is when everything all of a sudden loses meaning, right? And that is what's called depression. So you enter this state of depression, and typically you go into that grief cycle, right? That grief cycle starts, and you enter it at different intervals, um, different emotions from the grief cycle pop up, and there's no exact order. I don't think you go from one emotion to the next to the next to the next in chronological order, and sometimes it cycles back. I think it ping pongs around to different emotions because everyone's different, so it restructures itself differently every time you go through this depressive cycle. But it is very much a different world that you enter in. That's how I can describe that feeling. I think that's the best way to describe that feeling, is entering a different world, because your worldview changes. Your lens is now broken in a way where you are not who you once were at all. At all. Everything that made you you is now, you are now you're the lowest version of yourself in so many different ways. Like, there's hardly any positive to get out of being depressed. Like, for example, I just didn't care if I were to die the next day. It just didn't matter to me. I probably would have had more comfort in that, just to kind of let it all go, just to no longer have to feel this gray feeling every day, every second of the day. And everything that once gave me joy no longer gives me joy. An example of that would be my work. Right, the things I do at work, the connections that I have with people didn't really help. And even things that, like, when I would utilize others to try to help me through this depressive cycle that I'm in, because, like, in the last video I explained how it's important to lean on others. Well, I had learned that lesson, so I did try to lean on others, and even that didn't really help. Like, it definitely helped. I would not recommend isolating yourself when you enter this depressive world space. It only makes things worse. So leaning on others is an absolute must. You should do that. But it didn't help like I expected it to. I thought that it was going, a few chats with my parents, friends, everyone that cared about me, multiple talks would help, but it sort of did, but it didn't. Once I was away from them and I was just by myself again, it just kind of, the feelings relapsed. So it's really, the isolation part of it is what really sucks it all back to depressive state again, because you could be surrounded by people that you care about, and then the moment that you're gone, you no longer have that comfort anymore. And it's good to share experiences with them, because these people have probably gone through that at some point. So, like, your parents or anyone that maybe older than you, has a little bit more life experience, or even someone who's the same age as you and has similar life experiences. They can help you kind of get through that stage that you're in through their wisdom and knowledge, and just knowing, seeking comfort in knowing that they've gone through it too. You're not the only one. I think that's a big thing for people going through it. They want to know that they're not the only one that's gone through it. And even though I'm a super rational person, and I know I'm not the only one that has gone through it, I would also justify being the only one going through it in my head, because I was like, well, this is a supremely unique experience to myself. For myself, we had a unique experience together that cannot be replicated anywhere. And now it's gone. And that's true. 100% true. But the feeling of being depressed, the feeling of being alone, isolated, those aren't unique experiences. The experience you had with that person, or whatever it is that you had that you no longer have, because this usually stems from loss. So I'm just kind of stick with that area. Now that you no longer have it, that experience was unique to you, but now that you don't have it, these emotions start to come up. But just know that you aren't alone in that. Others have felt exactly what you have felt. It's the same type of feeling, right? Maybe not the same process, but the same feeling. So this is some context here. I ended up making a poem for the one that the X2, as I refer to her as. I made a poem because she was really into making poems, and I really liked that part of her. I thought that was very beautiful. I loved hearing the poems that she wrote, and a lot of her poems all came from grief. A lot of her poems were grief driven. They're all personal experiences, obviously, but she really liked the grief stuff. It has a lot of meaning, and it resonates with literally anyone. So anyone could read it and be like, wow, this is a very powerful message. She was really great at writing poems, and so at the end, I was like, I need to gather some things together and then send it to her so she knows how I'm feeling. And at the same time, I don't want to forget the memories that we had. So writing it down in certain ways would help me not to forget. And I want you to know that that's not an unhealthy way of thinking. I think if you are obsessed with someone or something, that's unhealthy. And if your outlet is some form of obsession, then you need to seek help in some way. I wasn't obsessed with her, but I very, very much loved her. Very, very much loved her. There's not a doubt in my mind that I loved her. And I try to distinguish, was it infatuation or is it love? Definitely wasn't lust. I can say that. Infatuation, obviously at the beginning a little bit, yeah. But I did really fall in love with her. And I know she fell in love with me. It just, it had to come to an end. So, and it sounds silly when I say this, but I did honestly think that I was just forever going to feel shitty. That I was just never going to get over the feelings that I was feeling. I just felt like I was always gonna go through a mix of these emotions at some point in my life. It could just be a random day some years later, and it's still gonna affect me, right? And I think that still holds true today. I mean, it's still kind of fresh. So the breakup happened late February. And by the way, I'm not trying to like cause any drama or anything. Like what I'm doing is for pure educational purposes and just to extract the lessons from this, right? And the feelings and all the important emotions, and then we can gather our thoughts on it and go about it in her own way, right? So I don't want you to think that like I'm doing this for drama purposes. I'm bringing up this past and I can't let go or anything like that. It's just it's fresh, so I want to share the experience. Okay. And so as I go through this, hopefully will help me bring up these memories that are starting to deteriorate, because what I think my brain has done is it's gone over that period of time, and in order to get, because I definitely feel like I'm at the acceptance stage of this now. I've gotten over that hurdle, so I'm no longer like constantly depressed. I do have moments of sadness still from it, but I'm not. It's not like this gray cloud hovering over me anymore. So this will kind of help maybe reopen some wounds, but I do think for the most part I'm good. It's just it will help me to extract the feelings from this. Okay. Yeah, I throughout the entire day I'm thinking about her. I'm thinking about this is post breakup, obviously, and she lived with me for 3 months, basically 3 months. So our day in and day out routines were right next to each other. You know, her stuff was next to mine, my stuff was next to hers. So the we lived and shared in the same world space as each other. So I would wake up, uh, starting the day, starting to think about okay, routine is. I start thinking of some sort of thing will remind me of her. The lack of her shampoo bottles being there, her stuff just being there, and that'll spark memories, obviously. And then when I go to bed, when I am dreaming, I still dream of her. But even in my dreams, my brain recognized that we weren't together. So none of my dreams were like, oh, hey, we're everything's bliss and everything's good, and then I wake up and then it's like, oh yeah, she's not here. No, it's like my brain, my dreams recognize we weren't together. So even in the dreams, it's like, no, we're not together. So I can't even, you know, I can't even find comfort in dreams to try to be with her, because even when I am dreaming, I I can't give myself the illusion that we're together still, right? I like that doesn't exist for me. It is my brain knows, right? She she was my world, and almost like a guide. Like she taught me so many things, so many incredible things and lessons that I got from her. And I didn't really feel like I did a whole lot for her. Like, not that I was a shitty boyfriend by any means, but I definitely didn't. I definitely didn't give her as much as I should have. You know, like I don't know. It's kind of hard to like think back on it and not getting too biased about things I did and didn't do, because obviously her perspective is different than mine. So yeah, who knows? But I do feel like I could have done more, and I should have done more for her, because she did a hell of a lot for me. This was the first relationship where I felt like I didn't give enough in terms of knowledge exchange. Okay, which for a lot of you you're gonna be like, that's really fucking weird to say, but like with X1, I taught her a lot of things. She taught me a lot of things too, but it was like an equal exchange of knowledge. Like she was really good at certain philosophical talks, and with X1, and she was really good with people and knowing the people side of things, and so I learned a lot. And from her experiences, I was able to learn, the grim reality of life, because I lived a relatively sheltered life. So I from X1's experiences and the people that she has, and the family that her family isn't, a side of her family isn't exactly as well put together as mine. So I gained different perspective, and so I got a lot of knowledge exchange from her, and then I gave her a lot of knowledge exchange on like finances and stocks and business management and stuff like that, because that's kind of my field. Well, with X2, I don't I didn't feel like I really did that. Like she knew I was good with business and stuff, but I didn't feel like I really taught her anything new. Really, I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I did teach her some things, but I don't feel like, looking back at it, I don't think that I taught her a lot. She taught me a lot. She taught me, and I think that's where the guilt comes from, is like I just didn't feel like I gave her nearly enough because I didn't exchange enough knowledge with her. And no, not everyone in a relationship is looking for knowledge exchange, for fuck's sake. I know that I that's a big thing for me apparently, but it really is, because it's like, if you're partners, then you should be exchanging different experiences and things with each other. That I think that's kind of the whole point of being with someone, and then you build each other up the with those different knowledges. Like if you have two people in the same field and you guys know the exact same types of things, it's kind of hard to build new, interesting, exciting things and concepts when your fields are the same. Not saying that it can't work out, but I do think it's a bit more dull and less exciting than two couples, or not two couples, but a couple where their backgrounds and knowledge is different, right? That's what makes relationships fun and exciting, is the different aspect of that person's life. What have they been through? What kind of things can they teach me? So I think, even though you don't think about knowledge exchange as an important aspect of a relationship, I think that is a very big part of it. Maybe in the background you don't really think of it, but now that I've said it, maybe it's more at the forefront now of your mind. You're like, oh yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Didn't really think about it before, but this is where it really hit me, and I was like, I didn't really do enough in that department of knowledge exchange, right? So she sort of recognized that and left. Well, there was other things, but anyways, regardless if you're in a dark space or not, I think the important thing to realize is that you will come out of the other side of things and re-enter the normal world again that you were once in before the depression hit. And I think that's really important, because it's very easy to believe that you're stuck in this gray world of depression and thinking, oh, there's just no way out for me. I'm going to be miserable for like this for forever. And I just think it's important to just focus on the concept that things will get better. I know people say that a lot, but just hold on to that idea until you get out of it, because you will eventually. Like, what's basically happened is, mentally there is an emotional tear in you, and that is going to take some time to heal, just like any physical wound. That takes time to heal. And I think it's important to express any sort of emotion that comes out throughout this whole process, because it's kind of like when you get a physical injury and you have all that pus and stuff trying to get the infection out. That's just basically ruining your body. I think that is a good analogy for allowing your emotions to do the same thing when it's a mental and emotional wound. So just think of it as like allowing those certain emotions of outlet to come out. And it is important to focus on the healthy ways of allowing those emotional outlets, because as you go through your cycle of grief, you're gonna resort to anger and sadness and all this stuff, and it's healthy to let it out, but the way in which you do it is also important, because you don't want to just start doing crazy stuff when you're angry or when you're sad. So, like, there should be no self-harm involved in any of these processes. No harm to others. There should just be other ways to kind of suppress the extreme side of those emotions, but it is important to let it out, kind of like you're letting out that pus infection, so it doesn't get worse. Because if you try to suppress these emotions, that's just as bad. I think it's going to take as much longer to heal through the process, because you're not allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel. So it's kind of an a tricky balance, as is life in general, right? But it will get better, and you just got to hold on to that idea. Just keep holding on to it. The reason why everything sucks and you don't feel anything, you don't wish to live on or do anything, is because you've entered a different world space, and that's something that you just have to keep in mind. Is I'm not in the normal world space. I've entered a dark space, and this will take some time to get over. And yes, it sucks. The process sucks. It's no one anyone can agree that that process is very difficult. But once you've made it to the other side and you're back to normalcy, you're going to be a much stronger version of yourself, because all that healing has created a new form of callus around you emotionally, and you're going to be much more well equipped to handle something similar to that if that were to happen again. And that's just kind of the adaptation of us humans, to be able to get stronger as life throws more and more things at us. So it's just important to see it as this is a growth opportunity, and that ultimately it was a good thing in some form. Now there are forms of depression that don't have a silver lining, right? I'm not saying every event that you go through will always have some silver lining. I'm a big believer in silver linings. I think most situations you can gather some sort of positive from it, but there are things that you will not gather a positive from it, such as someone that you care very dearly, whether it's your parents, a friend, a loved one. If they were to pass away all of a sudden, whether it was expected or unexpected, doesn't matter, but they're no longer there with you on this earth anymore. There's really no silver lining to be gained from that. Like, there shouldn't be one. I wouldn't imagine, if there's someone that you cared about as much as you thought you did, then there would be no reason for there to be a silver lining. Some things just suck. Some things in life, just plain and simple, they just suck. And that kind of level of depression is, it's similar to any other grief cycle of level of depression, because it's similar, but it's also hard, because you're constantly thinking to yourself, well, there's no positive from this. Like, how can I possibly get over this when there's no positives? At least if, you know, the if it was something else, like a breakup, right? The person didn't die, but you definitely feel like you're dying. You At least they're not dead, right? But if someone were to die that you cared about, trying to gather any sort of positive from that is, it's not there. It's not going to be there to help you get over it. So I don't think trying to find a positive outlet, or a positive silver lining is, I don't think it's really going to be there for you as an option this time, you know. So you just more or less have to just navigate through your feelings, which is obviously terrible, but what else can you really do? And you got to use your resources and lean into others, and keep on doing all the positive things that once made you happy again before you entered that dark world. You just got to know in your heart that eventually you'll get over it. And then even once you do get over it, like you finally have reached that acceptance stage, and you'll know you have, once your day to day stops feeling so cloudy and depressing, like it doesn't feel like there's a dark cloud over you. Once you've reached that, there's still going to be moments of sadness and levels of sadness throughout your life, and who knows how long that will last. I think it varies from person to person, because we all kind of grieve and deal with things in different ways. So and it's still okay to, even years down the road, to have a moment of sadness. You think back to that person that was once here in your life, and you'll never be able to see them again. Still allow yourself to feel what you need to, right? But you also don't want it to. You don't want to be obsessed, and I think that's the level of. That's where a lot of issues can arise from, is the obsession part. Like, you just, at that point, I think you should seek some help from someone else, because trying to navigate that by yourself is going to be very difficult unless you are aware of it. And then, if you don't try to fix it, then it could just cause more issues for yourself and others down the road, if you don't get a handle of this obsession with that person. Anyways, I think that's basically what I wanted to go over, is just, my experiences with entering that dark world, since it was still so fresh. And even now I still get moments of sadness, and I still have to navigate through my feelings, and again kind of bleed out the emotional feelings that are there, kind of like a pus infection. It every now and then just more feelings come out. But as each day passes, I become more and more okay with the reality of things. Even though I'm, at that acceptance stage, I still have more emotions that come out here and there. A song will remind me of the situation, or some event will remind me, or just randomly I'll just think of her and think about what we went through, and the emotions will still be there. But it's getting much better. I think it once you are at that acceptance stage, you'll realize when that has happened. But even after that, there's still plenty of emotions that can arise later on, for who knows how long afterwards. I also think another important thing to look at while you're going through your grieving process is to it's good to cry because it's over, but focus on smiling more because it did happen. Just focus on that last part more. It is okay to cry over it. It's not nothing you should be ashamed of. Like, I don't like the fact that our society has, for some reason, made it okay for men to suppress certain feelings that socially we categorized as a feminine emotion, such as like sadness and crying and stuff. Like, the fact that we have socially accepted that is, it just bothers me. It's like, why? Because that idea is not healthy, to think that men can't express how they feel. I think that gets them into a lot of trouble with when they're in relationships, because they think that, and they just won't show who they really are, that side of them, with their spouse or with their partner. And I think them holding themselves back like that is super unhealthy. It would just lead to more issues. And so don't follow social norms and things like that, because you gotta let yourself feel what you need to, unless it's a healthy or not a healthy obsession. At the moment you reach obsession, that's when it's not healthy. But if it's any other outlet that is not too extreme, I think you should allow yourself to feel those feelings, right? But anyways, that's all I got for you. Have a great day.